reflections of a staff trip that we all took I guess the first-ish week of January, the week of January 6th. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what that trip was and why and when we did it. And then we have just several questions, reflections that we're going to ask everyone to share about the trip. Hopefully this is a helpful conversation for anyone who is really interested in doing more advocacy work, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, and wants to learn more about kind of what it looks like to go to DC and to lobby, or, you know, maybe to do that here at the state level at the Capitol here. So hopefully these are good tidbits for everybody. And again, we will share this recording out. So just a couple quick things about what we actually did. So there were 15 of us that took a trip to Washington, DC. It was the week of January 6th. We were there Monday through Thursday that week. And the 15 of us that went included the entire staff of Nourish Colorado, except for 2 that had very good baby-related reasons. We have one staff whose due date is next week, and one staff who has a little baby already with her. Everyone else was able to make it, which is really phenomenal and lovely. And then we were really fortunate to have a few community partners be able to join us as well. So Andrea Loud as a regional food navigator, and many, many other things on the line with us today. She was able to come with us. And Sabra Lovejoy, who is a teacher and a rancher and many, many other things in Campo, Colorado. If you do not know where Campo is, at some point, go look it up, Google it. It's down the very southeast corner of the state. And Sabra was also joined by her 2 sons, a high school student and a college student that work with her and have been greatly involved on their farm and ranch enterprise and 4-H and other operations. So that was sort of the team. We were all able to go to DC together for that entire time. And a little bit about the purpose. There were some sort of real pressing sort of instigating factors around policy, and one is like the Farm Bill. So it is a Farm Bill year, as a lot of you know that are on these FABAC calls with us. We are getting ready to advocate for priorities from the state of Colorado in the 2023 Farm Bill. So what sort of the initial impetus was really a chance for all of us to go and meet with our federal delegation and those offices and to talk about what are some priorities that we hear and from our partners, and to keep our work moving forward in the Farm Bill. So we did have, we have a Farm Bill platform that we've worked on. Some of you have seen it. We will share it again. We will keep on sharing that Farm Bill platform and keep coming back to it in our regular FABAC calls. And we were able to schedule a series of meetings that really focused on different aspects of that Farm Bill platform. For that part of the trip to talk about the Farm Bill, we were able to meet with 7 members of our federal delegation. So we met with the offices of both of our senators, so Senator Michael Bennet and Senator John Hickenlooper's offices. And then we were able to meet with 5 representatives in the House. And that was Ken Buck's office, Jason Crow's office, Joe Neguz's office, Diana DeGette's office, and we felt really, really blessed to be the very first official meeting for Colorado's 2 new representatives, Yadira Caraveo and Brittany Pedersen. And we were able to meet with both of them in person, which was a real gift. And we were their sort of first official meetings because it was their first week on the job. So that is who we met with to really kind of go nitty gritty on Farm Bill priorities. We also had a goal of meeting with agency staff from the U.S. Department of Agriculture while we were there. And we were able to do that and have a 2-hour meeting with the 15 of us and about 15 of USDA staff that really overlook and oversee a lot of the programs that we work with here in Colorado and that fund our work. So we'll talk more about that. And then other than that, I think goals of our trip and why we did it was to have time together, to have time to come together around our priorities as a team, to grow in new ways and to grow new skills. And there are people that went on this trip that have never lobbied before or never met with offices before. And there's some that have done this a lot of times. So there's a big spectrum of sort of experience and interest. So it was a time for all of us to kind of grow in that one way together. And if anyone's interested too, we have like a little 1 to 2 pager we wrote up about the purpose of the trip, We wrote up a little overview of who we are as an organization that includes some bios. So we had some of those kind of materials that we shared with people in advance, just to kind of let them know, this is why we're coming to DC. Here's what to expect, kind of thing. So team, anything else that I missed just about kind of why we did it, when we did it? All right. So everyone on the line as well, we definitely will have open air question and answer time, but if you have questions as you go, please chat in questions as we go as well. But we just have a few questions that we wanted to just open mic share. So anyone who is on the trip, we just welcome your thoughts and reflections. So the first area we kind of wanted to share and talk about is kind of like just the nitty gritty. It's just planning and coordinating a really large trip like this with 15 people coming from lots of different places. So I just would love to hear from the team, like what worked well about planning and the logistics of this, what was fun about it, what was not so fun, what would you recommend to others if you're planning a trip like this, and maybe what you wouldn't recommend to others do when planning a trip like this. So it's an open mic from the team, online or in person. And please, team two, as you share, especially the first time, if you could just do a brief introduction, like, yeah, Moral, value chain for Native Nourish, so people on the line know who you are when you share, that would be great.
I can start. So I'm Jessica, Chef Jess, Director of Healthy Food and Institutions. And I'd say number one, Jesse, right over here, he did a great job getting us all organized and figuring out the lodging and just flights and all of that kind of stuff. The days were packed, they were filled, and it was a lot of back-to-back meetings that we had to do. And while we were aware of the amount of time it would take to get to the different meetings and the different rooms that we're going to be meeting in or the different buildings, it still took more time than I think we really expected. And so I would make sure that you're thinking strategically about the amount of time, what time you're flying in, how long it's going to take just to get to the hotel, get checked in, then the next meetings that you're going to have, where those meetings are, and budget in enough money for transportation, whether or not that's taking ride shares, taxis, using the train system, which is also some places we went to, it was still going to be a walk to even get to those locations. The getting ourselves around DC, it's very compact, but sometimes it was taking us easily 30, 45 minutes of walking just to be able to get to where we needed to go. So wear good walking shoes. And give yourself time for breaks in between the meetings and to make sure you have time to eat, because we had one day where we didn't even have time to make that happen. Those will probably be the biggest things, and find a hotel that's close to where you're really looking to be as well, to try to save some of those costs when it comes to transportation. And DC is expensive. Food was expensive as well. Mm-hmm. So just don't skimp on your travel, lodging, ride share budgets. Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, so I see there's a question in the chat about what the dress code is.
Nice.
That's great. You'll be out there. I would say like between business casual and business formal, somewhere in between there. I think honestly, there wasn't too much judgment if you just wore whatever you want, but at the same time, a lot of people are dressed very nice. A lot of people wearing suits and all that. So yeah. What do you want to add to that?
Staffers are now back in full suits. I was there in April and then again now, whereas in April it was still kind of COVID restrictions and people were in like shorts and t-shirts and meeting outside. Staffers are now back into full suits, but I didn't get the sense that we were expected to dress that way. I think, what are the thoughts that felt,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel overdressed or underdressed.
And you wore for example.
I did wear, I had a couple days where I did wear a dress shirt and a tie, but no jacket. Chef Taylor, Healthy Food and Institutions. Hi, everybody. Yeah, had a couple days where I did wear some nice shoes and a tie, but no jacket. The other two students that we took with us, they both wore full suits, which was very nice. Mm-hmm. And I had another day where I just wore a pullover sweater and a pair of khakis, and it was totally fine. And didn't feel underdressed. Mm-hmm. I even got to wear my hat every once in a while too. So.
Yeah. If you bring a blazer, you can throw that over anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blazer and tennis shoes.
Yeah, I figure our governor wears tennis shoes like to everywhere, like suit and tennis shoes because they're constantly walking. So
Yep.
like we can follow that standard. That's totally fine.
There. Other thoughts from anyone on the line to anyone else, just about sort of the nitty gritty and the planning and the logistics of it all that kind of, worked or didn't work so well? Other thoughts?
I do. This is Andrea Lau. I am the regional community navigator for Double Up Food Bucks. I would say mobility for people with disability. I would say that, I have been just thinking about that the whole time. And they never said this, not one person, not one staff member said anything about being burdensome, but I felt like I was, because it was so awkward so many times and so difficult trying to help me maneuver to the next buildings. And and the buildings are old, so it was just awkward feeling for me. But because of who I am, I blend pretty good with awkward. So I just think that if you do that, I say plan that out pretty well. And I learned, for travels, I need to make sure, because the biggest question that we had was it a lithium battery? And if it was a lithium battery, that would have caused a great big headache. So I learned a lot myself. Getting around DC, it was okay as far as moving on the sidewalks and everything, but I definitely had to have a scooter to be able to keep up with everybody. I would say, I managed to get through a lot of the doors too. So, but I remembering that we're in an old building and I have a personal scooter myself, and my scooter here in my home wouldn't have never fit through some of those doors.
They were small.
So, it's just trying to keep that in motion. And I thought Jess did a great job of planning, and we're on that big airplane. He really got 10 kudos for me with that. And that was a nice trip back. I really enjoyed that. I was privileged. I learned so much, and yet it feels so little with everything that's going on. And I love the bonding for each other. I really believe that everyone was there to support everyone. We supported each other. And like I was saying, I really, really appreciate this. This was one of the things that will stay in my memory for a lifetime. And I learned, even listening to the chef part of, Jess and Taylor telling their story. Boy, I had questions. I was like, but if they doing this and this is going on, but then why do they have to fight for this? I was just listening and learning, and I really am happy because it made me understand the bill and the way things work. I want to just say this, the way that you have to get to each of the representatives, and some of them were outside in the hallway. That was I was like, wait a minute, whoa, what? Why are we out in the hallway? So that was something I didn't expect to see. And just seeing how everything operate in person is so much different than having Wendy sit there and explain it to us like over our different meetings. Also, I want to say, Wendy, I thank you so much for prepping us before the USDA, because I really didn't know exactly how they worked and what they did. And when you met with us that night before and explaining what our expectations are and then what they do, that helped me a lot. And that helped guide my conversation with them. And I'm still back with I came back with a lot of how do I say, passion as well as emotions. My emotions are starting to spill out because I now have another part to add to my story, and that is policy in community. So I want to thank you guys for that. And I just let you guys know I was offered a job from one of the legislation's office from Arizona. They want me to become the community leadership building team, something, whatever he was. But I said I had my share of scorpions and rattlesnakes. I grew up in West Texas. I'm good. The only thing I would like down there probably out of that is the tarantulas, because I like spiders. But I was like, no, I don't want to see nothing brown. I don't want to be around everything brown anymore. I'm good. So I did appreciate it. It even trickled all the way down here in Colorado. They are, I'm working on 2 contracts for my big mouth. So, thank you. I said enough already.
We had a teeny heart attack for a second, then you're like, job offer, no meeting, but we hope you keep opening that mouth all the time, everywhere. And I wondered too, like, since as Andrea pointed out, there are some pretty interesting setups for some of these meetings. Some were in big old offices, some were in the hallway, some were big, some were small, but wondering from the group too, like what helped the most for like preparing for these meetings with the legislators? Like, was there practice that we did? Were there tools that we had that really helped to prepare for these meetings, or things that also, that converse, like things that you wish we'd had or would have done differently?
I can go on that a little bit. I think something we did not do but would have been very beneficial, and we didn't do it not because we didn't want to, we didn't have the time, we talked about doing it, was to role play. We were not able to do that. That's something that I would recommend for your organization. If you are going to do something like this, role play, and role play. I felt like our first meeting, every meeting went well, but the nerves in our first meeting, I think for myself, it showed up. And then as we went to more meetings, it was just so easy, and we feel so empowered and good to talk about this. We know what we're talking about, and it just didn't feel as intimidated. So role play, it's something that I recommend. It really helped, thanks to Becca that created these documents with like a summary of the things we want to talk, and she outlined every recommendation we were going to be talking about. So that helped a lot, having a document like that where you can fall back. That was very neat, very clear, very organized. So thank you, Becca, for that. That was very, very helpful too.
Great. And Healthy Food Incentives Director, that was Daisy. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Daisy Sweeney, Healthy Food Incentives Director. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurel, our value chain coordinator. I agree with everything Daisy just said, and wanted to also say that I think in the future, I'll prepare a 1-sentence way of conveying something and a 3-minute way of conveying that same thing, and maybe more time, so that I'm prepared as the time gets closer to finish with a representative. So if we fill our time more on one concept and we have very little time to mention something, I need to be prepared to say it in a few different lengths instead of trying to cram 3 minutes of thought into 1 sentence. So that's something I'll do in the future.
Hi, I'd like to add something really quickly. I'm Caitlin Stewart. I'm the Community Engagement and Navigator Manager. I got to spend lots of time with Andrea, and I learned very quickly that it doesn't really matter how you talk to your representatives. You can know all of the legislative language all you want, but oftentimes these folks are really receptive to hearing how the work that they're doing, the things that they're voting for, their legislation, how it's affecting people on the ground. So if you have those stories, those can often be just as powerful as sharing, fiscal things and legislative things. These folks want to know who these programs are affecting, how they're changing their lives, and what they can do better. One of my favorite things was getting to sit with the USDA. Andrea got to ask them how they're operating with equity, and they told her, and she was like, but how are you really doing it? Kind of getting to hold these folks accountable, but also coming as we are and making sure that they're accepting us as we are. That's super important as well. So if you're nervous about not knowing the right words, I think that you should definitely not be nervous about that. I think that if you have a story to share, you should be willing to share it by any means.
That was beautifully said, Caitlin. Thank you.
And
Sorry,
I'll,
switching it to the chats. Go ahead.
oh yeah, no, just to add to that, and I think this is something I know I get into my own head too often as well. And I used to be pretty intimidated about just talking to people at the state agencies and stuff. And we had a great meeting with the National Sustainable Ag Coalition on Monday. And he did, what's his name? Mike Lavender.
Mike Lavender, yeah,
Such a
their
great
policy
name.
director.
Mike Lavender. He really did just a wonderful job of kind of setting the stage that they're humans as well. Like everybody that we're talking to, they are just normal, regular people too. And to actually be a little bit comfortable with them and maybe even have a couple jokes if things are going well, and to just have more of this camaraderie type of sense with them and not be so like immediately down to business, which I know I myself can be a little too quick to get down to business. And he really just reiterated that if the situation's right and you're feeling that camaraderie come around, that it's a perfect opportunity to make a couple little jokes here and there, and to again just consider them as humans, which sounds so silly, but that's really what they are, and they're people too. And to not, I mean, naturally there's going to be some intimidation factor at play, but I think it's important to be reminded about that. And exactly as like Caitlin and Laurel and Daisy have said, is they want to hear your story. They want to understand it so they can really connect the dots back to their legislators and who they're supporting when it comes to policies that they're crafting. And I needed to hear that and just be like, yeah, they're humans too. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And you might be able to have a joke.
Yeah. And I think one thing we talked about too is that you know more than they do about this subject, to be honest. I mean, these are really bright, brilliant, amazing people, most of the staffers that we met with, but their portfolios are so broad, they can't know everything deeply. So everyone that went there knows more about the subject at hand, honestly, than they do. And that's, so there's, know that going into it and feel that going into it, that you guys are all real experts in what you do, and that's why you're there. I'll also add, just in terms about kind of the prep, getting ready for meetings, preparation and planning, just being scheduled and yet flexible, I think is a takeaway for me, is that being, early and often check in and schedule and send calendar invites. So all the staffers that we met with, you know, I'd sent them all a calendar invite. I confirmed and then reconfirmed how much time they had. Open up the meetings by confirming again, how much time do you have here today? So be as scheduled as you can about it, but also be ready to be flexible. This kind of gets to Laurel's point, is that sometimes a staffer might say, actually, something else came up, I only have 20 minutes. Or, hey, the legislator is going to be there, but she has to leave in 10 minutes. Or it's happened as well. We've had staff say, actually, forget, I have an hour, let's keep talking. So just to Laurel's point, sort of having that preparation of like, you know, having something you can say pretty quickly, but also be prepared if you have longer, and knowing that sometimes you just can't control that until you're there. You can be as organized as possible, and it still might have to change a little bit. But again, they're still just people and you're still having a great conversation. So, and bring business cards. We had name tags as well. Just, we had folders with leave behinds. We had name tags, we had business cards. So I thought having those packets was really helpful to bring along as well. So any other tips, just about sort of getting tips of tools that were helpful or preparation that was helpful from anyone else?
Hi, it's Rakia. I'm our nutrition program specialist. I just wanted to add that it was really helpful to have that first meeting talking about meeting with staffers and how that's actually a great thing, because staffers run DC and they're the ones who are really advising our policymakers around what they hear from us. So it was great to have a little intro on kind of how that lowered the stakes a little bit. It didn't feel as scary, but also those are the exact people that we want to be influencing because they're doing so much behind the scenes work. That's all.
Yeah. They're very influential. They're the ones that we're going to remember and take forward what you're saying. So I think, Ty, how long were your meetings and the one in the hallway? Oh, so I think
in the hallway.
Several in the hallway. One thing about the hallway that I wish we had done one of the hallway meetings. Some of them were totally fine. That's very typical. So if someone asks for a hallway meeting, don't be upset. It's very typical. It doesn't mean that they don't value you. It's just, in one of our cases, we had 15 people. So he was like, we can do that in the hallway. I don't have a conference room. But there was one meeting in the hallway where it was we went down a hall and there was right off this big service elevator, and it kept dinging and making noises. And I wish that I had just said, hey, excuse me, I really love your questions. We love this conversation. Do you mind if we go down a different hallway? I wish I had just kind of paused. And I think it's okay to do that, is to say, hey, wait, we really want this to be an effective conversation. This is distracting. Can we move? And then the meetings were, I think most of them were 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Senator Bennett's was an hour.
Hickalooper was an hour.
Hickalooper was an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
It was in a conference room too.
Yes. The Senate offices were nice big conference rooms.
Yeah.
So hour-long meetings with the senators, and I think most of them were 30 minutes. With the other offices. When we met with the actual representatives, Representative Caraveo and Representative Pedersen, they both had like floor votes they had to run off to. So they weren't there for the whole half an hour. They were there for maybe like 15 minutes, but it was a gift anyway. So.
I was at secret tunnels.
Oh yeah.
From
Do you want to tell them?
Oh yeah, I mean, when we were meeting with Brittany Pedersen and she had to run to the House building for a vote. We were in her office. She just goes into her office, doesn't like leave out the hallway or out the front door. She just stays in her office, and then they're like, yeah, she's gone to vote. How did she get there? She teleport? What happened? It's gotta be a tunnel straight from the office.
What?
Yeah, she went into her office to go vote, never came back out of her office. So like, she went straight from her office to the House building. Right, crazy, right?
So
Or it's just
we
virtual.
are gonna ride the secret Congress train.
No.
Although we did, some of us, again, a couple things, definite mobility, accessibility issues with the tunnels underneath the
Yeah.
building specifically, which is deeply unfortunate, because they are old buildings, but some of us did started to learn how to run between Longworth and Rayburn, two of the House buildings, via the tunnels underneath them. We got that system figured out a little bit. Also scheduling, the House and the Senate buildings are on opposite sides of the Capitol. And it's not a huge, it's only 10-minute walk, maybe. It's not significant, but it's a good idea to schedule all your House meetings together and your Senate meetings separately. The first time I ever did this, I was by myself and I didn't have any clue what I was doing. And I went like House, Senate, and I was literally like racing back and forth across the Capitol. I was literally dripping sweat and it was fine. So just remember, don't do Senate and House meetings, maybe back to back. Yeah, so what about other thoughts about when you're actually talking to when you're there and you were talking to your legislators, what felt like it really resonated and connected, and what felt like it worked, what was powerful when you're actually talking to legislators, offices, sorry.
I have some, my name's Becca, I'm the legal analyst with Nourish, and something that I found helpful was to know what part of your platform or whatever you're presenting that you were specifically talking about, and practice that, maybe not even word for word, but just know the content well enough that you can just talk about it in a conversation without having to read off of your paper. Because if you're reading sentences or bullet points even that you made, you yourself won't feel as comfortable. It might sound fine to them, but I think that I felt a lot more confident when I was just talking about what I knew, because obviously we all know the work really well and you do know it, but in the moment it's easy to think you don't and to just start reading off of what you already wrote down. So I think that was my big takeaway of what I want to practice for next time.
To add to that, I think it was also very impactful, and we were lucky to count with Andrea's and Sabra's and her son's presence, so they can give the community perspective, or they know that they are the real testimony of the actual work that we are doing, and we're there to advocate for. I think that Andrea left us all very in awe every time she spoke, and she was very impactful with her stories. Same with Sabra, Milo, and Malcolm. The way they talk and how they speak for their work that they do and that we try to advocate for. That was very, very impactful. I think that was great. I'm so glad that they were part of this trip.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anything else to add, team, just around this? What was sort of impactful, what resonated, what felt good or right about when you're actually speaking to staffers?
I felt like there were different ways to, we only met with one Republican office, but I felt like there were different ways to talk to the Republican office. The ones that were with me in that meeting could probably attest to that. When she literally tells us that the office really isn't interested in words like equity and inclusion, but are interested in making cuts to things that would ease administrative burden, cuts spending in creative ways. So different ways to kind of craft our language and use our Republican representatives to cut the things that we want to cut, and then use the Democratic representatives to add the things we want to add, sort of thing was kind of interesting. And if I knew, I had a feeling of that, but it just never really occurred to me before we got there that like, oh, what are the things in here that we want to cut? We should focus on those things. And their staffer was really, really great about telling us that,
Yeah.
Which was really awesome.
Yeah. Sadly, that staffer from Ken Buck's office is going to Senator Grassley's office because she's so good, but she was very helpful.
But it sounds like the follow-up with the new staffer that's taking her place is happening. So yeah.
Yeah, it's happening already. And it sounded like she was really helpful to think about like language, right? She fully offer to be like, if you want help in terms of thinking about words to use to convey this to Republican offices. So ask your offices, ask staffers to help with things like that. If you need it, like how should we frame this differently? What language can we use? Things like that.
I get the feeling that staffers are mainly agnostic and just trying to get information. At least maybe not the way that they vote, but at least the way that they're speaking to us and the way that they convey things. So
yeah, that's a very good word for it, right? They're there to listen to constituents, convey what we share. Yeah.
And then be honest about what they're expecting from this office.
Yeah, what's realistic.
Yeah, what's realistic from the office.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Before we move into other non-delegation meetings, other things we did in DC team, Anything else to share about meetings with the offices and what worked and what didn't? And
One more thing, and then I'll shut up. I think thanks to Mike Lavender, we were able to. He told us how to. Some will know what you're there to talk about. Some will know about your program, and some just don't know. So if you start with, "Hey, have you heard about?" in our case, double F food bags and how that works. Some will say yes, and so all right, we'll save that intro on the background so we jump right into and we'll have more time to discuss recommendations or not. And some don't. So you'll do a quick background and then time gets you have a smaller time frame to ask for your recommendations. But yeah, just ask, do you know or not? And if they have questions that you don't know, it's okay to say, well, we'll just get back to you with that and follow up. Yeah. Make sure to follow up with everyone that you met. And that's what we did and we'll continue to do. So yeah.
yeah, Megan.
I'm sorry, I didn't come and I have FOMO so bad, but can I add one thing to that? Is that okay, Wendy?
Look, we're saving all of your chats, Megan, to add to this because
so to the follow-up piece, when you meet with them, especially if they don't know anything about the program, just tell them that that's in the leave behind. So all that information is in there for you. And we're going to jump right into our ask. And then you ask what you need and you say, and we need to follow up with you next week. How, make your second appointment right then. And then same day, I know you're exhausted, right? But then the same day, try to shoot that email to confirm. Thank you so much for meeting with us. We're looking forward to connecting in 2 weeks around blank, 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 right? And then that's another time for you to put digitally in that email what was in the leave behind, so that there's no way that they can't know. They have the paper copy, they've got it on digital, and you've committed them to that follow-up. But as much as you can, make sure that you have really instituted that your expectation is that you will be continuing to speak with them. And sometimes they'll say, this isn't my issue area. Thank you so much for telling me that. Which aide should I be speaking to about this particular thing? If they say they don't know, okay, then I feel like I would love to connect with your LD. That's their legislative director. So don't let them put you off in that space. And Wendy, I hope it's okay to add that to
I love it. Bring it. And I love that focus, Megan, on just like, we're here to stay. And building really ongoing sustainable relationships. That's awesome. You also made me think, Megan, about the leave behinds. Is we also sent, we emailed when we did, we scheduled and then we sent reminders, and we emailed reminders the week before. We sent our whole Farm Bill platform just as like, hey, no expectation, but just so you have it. And actually several people printed out and read it before we met. So that was actually very helpful, that the people did some homework and then we could kind of like dive in a little bit more, and they came prepared with questions about some things, which was great too. So
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Laura.
All right. I thought it was pretty cool to be Representative Caraveo's very first appointment during her tenure in Congress. And it was good to prep. We had Wendy in our ears to know that she hadn't yet been officially designated on any committees. And so we got a chance to really let her know we're pro Caraveo on the House Ag Committee. And she brought it up too. She's ready to advocate for that as well. And so that felt really good. And to Coralia's question in the chat about overall what was the best experience, I just want to say that USDA meeting was incredible that Wendy set up for us. We got to meet with directors of so many programs at the USDA. It was just amazing that they took 2 hours with us. Apologies for all the noise my cat is making at my feet. I'm going to mute myself now.
We can't hear it, and it'd be adorable if we could.
I know.
It was a 30-foot conference table, by the way.
It was 30 feet.
30 feet.
Okay, so the USDA conference table was 30 feet long.
Mhm.
It felt so special. You're not even allowed to bring water in there.
Yeah.
It's so special. No drinks. That's the nicest chair I've ever sat in my life. I never will. And so we felt treated, it just was nice to feel treated well.
Yeah.
We felt special. It
Yeah.
felt like they were
Yeah.
kind of really showing up for us, which felt special.
Yeah.
So yeah, other thoughts on the USDA meeting or other, what was the best experience? Great question, Cornelia. Thank you.
I think, one thing for the USDA meeting is on top of it feeling special, it did seem like they showed up for us.
Mhm.
And the new Office of Urban Ag, I mean, he was effectively like chomping at the bit to be like, y'all need to look at this program. You need to sign up for this. You need to do X, Y, Z. Here's this. And just really like ready to make sure that some of their programs that they run that are not as well utilized or maybe seen as specifically urban, when they define urban to really be any kind of community area where people gather. It doesn't have to be urban, suburban, rural. And it was fascinating just to again feel that this didn't seem like something that they were strong-armed into having to come. Like they actually had questions for us that were targeted to our programs, the work that they do, the work that we do. They knew about the Community Food Advocates Program. They knew about Double Up Food Bucks. They knew we've received a Regional Food Systems Partnership grant. They did their homework. And they seemed excited and willing to listen to us. And I think we all could have been there for another hour or two if they would have given us that time to really start kind of asking them some tough questions about grant management and application processes and how to make things simpler. But it was probably my favorite meeting as well. And you could see Biden's picture like reflecting in the table, because again, it was a nice table. You're like, he's probably sat at this table. I know.
There was a comment in the chat about, I hope we told somebody that matching limits participation. I think we did.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. We're
Yeah,
following
so
up.
you wanna
Go on.
I don't.
follow up on that? Oh, okay.
I just saw it. I was like, oh, I think we did. Pretty sure.
We will-
Somebody touched on that. Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk with the USDA, we did talk about the limitations of requiring match to get these federal grants and just a lot of barriers for a lot of organizations to advocate, to apply for and access some of these grants. So, and we are capturing a lot of that. We're doing kind of a big table of follow-up for the USDA about questions we have for them. Bless you. Suggestions we have for them, and then commitments we are also making moving forward. So, we are kind of putting together a comprehensive follow-up too for the USDA. Other thoughts from anyone else too about like what was the best? I can't say it as well as Cornelia put it, but what was sort of the best part of the week? Anyone else? Other thoughts?
I can hit on something. I just really enjoyed hanging out with the team. I thought that was really great. I really enjoy our team. A few of us got to go together to the Lincoln Memorial, and I had no idea that he was that big. I mean, that guy was enormous. So yeah, what a weird, crazy life-size memorial. That was wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
Overseeing the whole
Yeah, he was a
All-
literal giant.
intimidating statue of Abraham Lincoln.
I really feel like it was like totally a team effort that especially with the incentives team, everybody, but we kind of made a pact. Oh, if we get to stumbling and stuttering and like we lose track, then we won't get offended if somebody else on the team like picks up and kind of supports us there, which was really nice because I definitely did my fair share of stumbling and stuttering.
She was amazing, for the record. They're recording this. Everyone was fun. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Everyone just spoke themselves. They spoke their truth. They told their stories. It was lovely. I know there are some questions too about what else we did. So we did other things, not just delegation meetings. So I don't know if anyone wants to chime in too on some of the other, we did partner meetings as well when we were there. So obviously the USDA meeting was a huge hit. And if anyone plans a trip to DC or wants to request something similar with the regional USDA office, but also something we could consider recreating with our regional USDA office. They're housed here in Denver, so just something to consider. So if you want to do it with your regional USDA staff, or if you're going to DC and want to do it again, we're happy to talk more about like who we worked with, who we invited, how we kind of prepped for that meeting and all of that. But so beyond the USDA, we did a lot of other partner meetings. So anyone else want to talk about other like partner meetings we did? Yeah, Caitlin, you want to share about that? Like what else was really helpful? And
I really liked meeting with, well, I liked the way it was structured. It was kind of like we got to dip our toe into it easily. We started out with INSAC, and then we met with the Fair Food Network, which was really nice. Mark Nicholson is awesome. I got to sit beside him at dinner, and he was just a lovely human. But it was really nice because we got to talk about, like, I feel like Fair Food Network built a little bit on what we talked about with INSAC, and we kind of got to prepare for actually talking with the delegation, and kind of got to get slowly warmed up.
Yeah. Other, oh, you're talking about lunch at the African American History Museum? Yeah, that was a highlight. Yeah, History Museum period, and the lunch was outstanding. Yeah,
I was in that
anyone
section
can go
for a
eat
long time.
downstairs. Your what?
I was in the sports section in that museum for a very, very long time. Yeah.
Did eat delicious food. I know the DC Central Kitchen was a huge highlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, go Taylor, talk about DC Central
Sure,
Kitchen.
yeah, it's an incredible model that they are contracted with a lot of schools in the DC area as their food service management company, and it seems like they're using that contract to help feed community, which is really cool, to help fund other programs in the community. So approaching a very for-profit system with a nonprofit mindset, and they have their own just massive central production kitchen space that's brand new, that hasn't been used yet, they're getting into using it probably within the next couple of weeks. They do workforce development training with post corrections, and hire them in the schools in their central kitchen, and that is a lot of what I took away from it, was their culinary and their kitchen side, and they do a lot more on community side that probably somebody else could speak of.
Yeah, can I talk?
Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Lonnie Bird. I'm the Double Up Food Bucks manager. So DC Central Kitchen was one of my highlights for sure. They also, in addition to what Taylor was saying they also have a healthy corner store initiative. And they have what is their equivalent to Double Up Food Bucks, which is called Fresh Match, right? And so they actually like give the corner stores like everything that they need to be set up for the Healthy Corner program. So like all the technical assistance, they actually come in and set up the stores so that they kind of all look the same, as far as the coolers that they have, the produce, and they even provide them with the produce. So they even have like pre-cut produce that's in there for them and everything, signage, all of the education that they need to know around that. And so anyway, it's a really well thought out program. It's set up to really set stores up for success. I was very impressed by just hearing them talk about it. They have like, I don't know how often the calls are. I think they're monthly, but they basically have a call where all the store owners are on a call or come together at a meeting at the same time, which is a huge feat, because getting store owners together when they're sometimes the only ones that run the store and don't really have a lot of time, that is humongous. But anyway, part of what I did while we were there is I went to 4 different stores that are part of the Healthy Corner and Fresh Match, and talked to one store owner and a couple of employees, and just gave me really good insight into what I think we should kind of duplicate here in Colorado with Double Up Food Bucks. So it was awesome. Awesome.
Great. Also, Lonnie, I want to add too that as much as they set up all the stores the same. They also really emphasize, at least from what I took away, how much they treated each store like their own. Sorry, they let each store owner treat it as their living rooms. They didn't come in and like tell them how to set things up. They very much respected how they wanted to, but like encouraged them all to make it like the thing. I don't know if you talked more about that when you met with them individually, but when we were at DC Kitchen, I thought that was a really cool way to describe it, like respect how they want it to feel.
And yeah, that does show up. It's not all exactly the same way, but you know, it's still, yeah, each definitely each store has its own personality, but they are all left with the same tools. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I'm wondering if there, and thank you all so much for like the questions and the chats, and we'll capture them all, but what did we not address? What are other questions anyone has about anything at all about the trip? What else are you wondering about?
Just gratitude. There were so many little moments where I'd be with colleagues like at the Dubliner, a bar near our hotel, or walking between buildings where we were just sort of giddy with, oh my gosh, can't believe we're here. How do we get to have this opportunity? I see Daisy smiling, and that's exactly who I was thinking of in that moment, that we were just like, what? This is amazing. So thank you to everybody who made it happen, including Sarah and Wendy, and in the visioning and fundraising. Oh my gosh, once in a lifetime opportunity.
Becca, where's the napkin?
Oh, the napkin.
Oh, yes.
I kept the napkin from the little pub that we went to like every night, so it's hanging out there.
Tiny, tiny little napkin right up there.
There it is.
There we go. Now I'm talking. There we go.
Oh, Megan's been there.
That's hilarious. It stayed right there, it's right off the Capitol. So, and to everyone on the line too, these things they are sometimes hard to convince funders to support. And I hope and think that's changing. So just everyone on the line, like keep asking for this stuff. The people that you work with, the funders that you work with, keep asking your funders. And when you're writing grants or whatever, write it in and say, hey, this is if you want ours to take our work to the next level, if you want our voices to be heard, if you want this to become sustainable, you got to support us doing activities like this as well, and bringing a lot of voices along in the process. It can't just be like one person that goes, your policy director, executive director. It's got to be opportunities for everybody. So everyone keep asking for it. And the other thing too is 90% of this trip, we sort of build as education and awareness building, not direct lobbying. Because if you think about it, we did make direct requests in those meetings with our delegation offices, but the vast majority of the time it was building our capacity and our skills, and it was doing education and awareness with delegation offices or with the USDA. So we're also, you don't have to, you can get around those kind of rules of like limited lobbying, right? Because most of it is just education and awareness building. So it's totally doable. Keep asking for it. And thank you all for being here. We're going to send out, we'll send out recordings in Spanish and English. Becca took immaculate notes. We'll send out the chat. And we'll also keep sharing our Farm Bill platform that we used as sort of the basis for our conversations. So unless there are any other questions from anyone, I think we're good here. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you get to do this too. Here in Denver at the Capitol or in DC or both. Thank you all for being here.